There are those who believe that buried underground in one of these deep tunnels is the legendary lost treasure of the biblical King Solomon.
For centuries, legends, scriptures, and archaeological speculation had swirled around the final resting place of King Solomon, the biblical monarch famed for his immense wisdom, immense wealth, and grandiose architectural feats, including the construction of the first temple in Jerusalem. While ancient texts alluded to the grandeur of his tomb, no one had ever located it with certainty, let alone dared to claim it had been opened, until now. After 5,000 years shrouded in mystery, King Solomon's tomb has finally been unearthed and opened, and the sheer magnitude of the discovery has sent shockwaves through every corner of the globe. Before we start, hit the like and subscribe buttons for more exclusive news. The tomb's discovery was not a chance occurrence, but the result of years of methodical investigation, satellite imaging, and subsurface radar scans performed by a coalition of international archaeologists working in secret. The search focused on an area southwest of the old city of Jerusalem, near a rocky escarpment riddled with caves long dismissed as ordinary geological formations. But beneath layers of debris and sediment, hidden under a collapsed stone wall that likely once marked the boundaries of an ancient royal compound, the entrance to the tomb was finally exposed. Covered in centuries of grime but unmistakable in its design, the entrance was carved with a style unlike anything seen in the surrounding region, an intentional blend of Egyptian and Phoenician influences, suggesting the eclectic reach of Solomon's kingdom. When the team first entered the antechamber, they were immediately struck by the preservation of the structure. The dry conditions and sealed nature of the tomb had protected it from the ravages of time. Stone blocks etched with geometric patterns and symbolic inscriptions lined the corridor that led deeper into the rock. As the team proceeded, every inch of the space seemed to radiate an atmosphere of profound historical weight. The walls were inscribed with scenes of royal ceremonies, mythical beasts, and figures cloaked in robes adorned with gold leaf designs still visible after thousands of years. The central burial chamber was a revelation in itself. A massive stone sarcophagus rested atop a raised platform carved into the bedrock, surrounded by a ring of pillars that appeared to serve both architectural and ceremonial purposes. The sarcophagus was ornately decorated with lapis lazuli, onyx, and amber inlays, and bore inscriptions written in Paleo-Hebrew, suggesting that it indeed belonged to the fabled king himself. These markings confirmed what scholars had only dreamed of, a direct, untouched link to Solomon's era, unfiltered by centuries of rewriting or reinterpretation. Inside the sarcophagus lay the remarkably preserved remains of a man in regal attire. Though the fabric had deteriorated, the gold threads and gemstones embedded in his clothing still shimmered under the lamplight. His skeletal frame bore the remnants of ceremonial armor, gold-plated greaves, a breastplate inlaid with semi-precious stones, and an elaborate headdress shaped like a crown. Alongside the body were symbolic artifacts, an ivory scepter, a silver harp, a golden lion-shaped seal, and scrolls sealed in bronze cylinders. These items were not just opulent burial trappings. They were icons of a king who governed not only with military power and wealth, but with a spiritual and intellectual authority that had long outlived him in cultural memory. One of the most astonishing aspects of the tomb was the treasure room adjacent to the burial chamber. Unlike the chaotic pillaging that had occurred in the tombs of many other ancient rulers, Solomon's treasure room remained untouched. Here were chests filled with coins from distant lands, bearing the marks of Phoenician, Egyptian, and Mesopotamian minting, implying that Solomon's reign reached even further than previously believed. The walls of the room were lined with shelves stacked with ceramic jars of fragrant oils, ointments, and powders that still retained their scent. There were ivory figurines and ceremonial vessels, each meticulously arranged as though placed by hands that knew their significance would endure across millennia. Yet perhaps the most significant discovery wasn't the gold or the artifacts, but the scrolls themselves. Some were wrapped in linen and sealed in resin, a preservation method more advanced than what had been previously known in the region. These scrolls appeared to be more than religious writings. They included philosophical treatises, architectural blueprints, legal codes, and records of diplomatic correspondence. Some referenced interactions with kingdoms not clearly associated with ancient Israel, suggesting Solomon's influence extended beyond the traditional biblical borders into Central Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. The implications of this find rippled instantly through academic, religious, and political communities. For archaeologists, the tomb was a time capsule capable of rewriting vast swaths of ancient Near Eastern history. Each artifact offered new insights into the technological prowess, cultural synthesis, and geopolitical clout of Solomon's kingdom. The architectural methods suggested in the tomb, modular construction, symbolic mathematics in layout, and advanced ventilation shafts, revealed that ancient builders operated with an understanding of physics and design that rivaled many later civilizations. For theologians and scholars of religious studies, the tomb offered a tangible connection to a figure long enveloped in a haze of reverence and myth. The inscriptions in the burial chamber, combined with the contents of the scrolls, shed new light on the philosophical underpinnings of the Hebrew Bible. Solomon's recorded thoughts, preserved in his own hand or by scribes in his court, showed a deep engagement with concepts of justice, human purpose, cosmic order, and divine law. Rather than merely a ruler of opulence, Solomon emerged from the tomb as a philosopher-king whose legacy had spiritual dimensions yet to be fully understood. There were objects of particular mystery that drew the most intense scrutiny, devices made of bronze and gold that appeared to serve unknown functions. One artifact resembled an astrolabe but had layers of movable concentric rings with star maps etched on their surface, maps that didn't match any known historical charts. Some scientists speculated that this device may have been an early form of celestial computer, allowing Solomon's court to predict eclipses, solstices, and planetary movements with unprecedented accuracy. Other devices resembled compasses and gyroscopes, hinting at advanced navigation tools that could rewrite the timeline of global exploration. Beyond scholarly implications, the discovery held profound symbolic significance. Solomon had always occupied a unique space at the intersection of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Each tradition revered him in a different light, as a prophet, a wise monarch, and a builder of divine sanctuaries. The fact that his tomb was real and that it contained such monumental evidence of his reign was staggering. It added concrete substance to the foundational stories of billions of people and could potentially redefine interfaith dialogues built on shared spiritual ancestry. The geopolitical weight of the discovery was also impossible to ignore. Uncovering the tomb within the territorial boundaries of modern-day Israel reignited debates over historical ownership, preservation rights, and access to sacred artifacts. The tomb's significance transcended modern borders, yet it became a locus for international diplomacy, with governments vying to contribute to the excavation and analysis, hoping to cement their role in stewarding this legacy of global heritage. Cultural institutions around the world began re-evaluating their own collections. If the Tomb of Solomon could survive 5 millennia intact, what other ancient truths might lie buried beneath layers of soil, waiting to be unearthed? Museums fast-tracked their digitization efforts. Universities launched new interdisciplinary programs to study not just ancient Israelite history, but the broader, interconnected web of civilizations that Solomon's kingdom appeared to have influenced. Linguists, philosophers, historians, and architects were all drawn into the gravitational pull of the discovery. Even more compelling was the effect it had on the general public. Millions flocked to digital live streams of the excavation site. Documentaries were released within days, and new theories about the contents of the tomb spread across social media platforms. What struck many was how the tomb blurred the lines between myth and material history. For millennia, Solomon had been a symbol, his wisdom proverbial, his temple legendary, his wealth unimaginable. Now, he was not only real but more complex and fascinating than any legend had previously suggested. This was not simply a case of validating ancient texts. It was a reawakening of imagination across cultures. People saw in Solomon's tomb a bridge to an era where mysticism and science, faith and architecture, governance and philosophy were intertwined. It reminded humanity that behind every legend lies a grain of truth, and sometimes that truth is far more spectacular than the stories passed down through generations. As the excavation progressed, deeper chambers were revealed, including what appeared to be a hidden sanctum, sealed behind a rotating slab of stone. Inside was a circular room, domed and acoustically perfect with niches for ritual artifacts. At its center was a large basin of pure alabaster, possibly used for ceremonial cleansing or oracle consultations. The walls here were inscribed not with typical script, but with an unknown symbolic language unlike any previously catalogued. Cryptographers began working around the clock, some speculating that this room was not merely religious, but a think tank for Solomon and his advisors, an ancient lab of ideas. There was no evidence of looting or invasion. Everything pointed to an intentional burial by a society that wanted to preserve, not just hide, its king's legacy. Solomon's death had not marked the fading of his influence, but the beginning of a calculated enshrinement. The tomb had been crafted not as an opulent display of wealth, but as a message for future generations, one that now, after 5 millennia, was finally being heard. The discovery, in its scope and significance, felt like the archaeological equivalent of splitting the atom or landing on the moon. It was not simply a look into the past, it was a lens through which the entire arc of human civilization could be reinterpreted. The idea that wisdom, technology, and diplomacy could converge so powerfully in one ancient figure offered inspiration in a world that often feels fractured and rudderless. Solomon's tomb, more than anything, stands as a reminder that the past is never truly lost. It lies beneath our feet, layered in time and shadow, waiting patiently for those with the vision to seek it and the courage to uncover it. The opening of this tomb wasn't the end of a mystery, but the beginning of a new chapter in understanding who we are and what we've always strived to become. As the final passages of the tomb came into view, archaeologists discovered an intricate mosaic floor unlike any previously seen in ancient Near Eastern architecture. Each tile, no larger than a thumbnail, had been cut with meticulous precision and arranged to depict celestial constellations, mythological scenes, and mathematical patterns with near-perfect symmetry. Some motifs bore an uncanny resemblance to later Islamic and Byzantine artistry, suggesting Solomon's cultural influence may have prefigured or even directly inspired later artistic traditions. This was not mere decoration, it was a visual testament to a worldview that fused aesthetic beauty with cosmological understanding. The floor led to what appeared to be a council chamber carved deep within the rock. Surrounding a large obsidian table were 12 stone seats, each inscribed with different names and symbols. While some scholars posited these represented tribal leaders of ancient Israel, others argued they denoted an elite intellectual circle, perhaps scribes, astronomers, and theologians that advised the king. The symbolism here was profound. The room evoked an image not only of governance, but of dialogue and knowledge sharing, a forum of minds assembled to contemplate matters of state, science, and spirit. The inscriptions on the seats included phrases relating to balance, justice, and divine harmony, strongly suggesting that the governance model under Solomon integrated spiritual law with rational discourse, an early embodiment of the ideal of enlightened rulership. In the walls of this chamber were narrow recesses, each one containing sets of intricately bound codices, early precursors to books, crafted of papyrus layered with a fine silk-like fabric. These codices appeared to contain records of trade routes, diplomatic missions, and architectural notes on large-scale urban planning. One particular volume included a detailed schematic of a temple-like structure never mentioned in biblical or historical texts. Its dimensions and design suggested it was meant for a different geographic setting, possibly a prototype for an overseas sanctuary, or a project meant to manifest Solomon's vision of a universal spiritual center beyond Jerusalem. The idea that his ambitions extended beyond his kingdom opens a new perspective on Solomon, not merely as a regional monarch, but as a proto-globalist ruler, envisioning a network of interconnected sanctuaries and intellectual centers. Further down a descending corridor, sealed for millennia by a pressure-sensitive stone mechanism, was a subterranean reservoir carved into natural bedrock. At its center stood a hexagonal fountain, dry now, but stained with the mineral traces of once flowing spring water. The placement and construction suggested it was designed not only for function, but ritual, a symbolic fountain of wisdom perhaps. Some theorists believed this could have been the source of the so-called waters of insight referenced in apocryphal texts and mystical writings. The walls were covered in mirror-like metallic panels etched with geometric inscriptions that shimmered under artificial light, creating a prism-like effect that evoked transcendence, a metaphorical journey inward, mirroring Solomon's own path from worldly power to metaphysical inquiry. In adjacent chambers were repositories of preserved botanical specimens, bundles of herbs, seeds, and dried plant materials stored in clay jars, many labeled in ancient scripts. Several of these species were extinct in the modern region, suggesting they had been imported from distant climates or cultivated under specialized conditions. Genetic analysis revealed that some strains contained compounds with psychoactive or medicinal properties not yet fully understood. These could have been used in spiritual rites, healing rituals, or philosophical exploration, tools for accessing altered states of consciousness or heightened perception. If these were indeed part of Solomon's court culture, it offers tantalizing evidence of an advanced understanding of botany and consciousness, and a possible link between spiritual practice and empirical experimentation. Even more perplexing were the mineral specimens found in a sealed vault at the lowest level of the tomb complex. Among them were crystalline structures unlike anything found in surrounding regions. Some resembled quartz, with embedded microscopic filaments that responded subtly to temperature and magnetic fields, anomalies that puzzled geologists. Though no definitive conclusion has been reached, these materials are currently under study by physicists and materials scientists, who believe they may reveal insights into early forms of natural energy storage or transmission. If Solomon's kingdom possessed knowledge of such properties, even in rudimentary form, it could upend long-standing assumptions about the technological capabilities of ancient civilizations. While much of the attention has focused on the grandeur and innovation displayed within the tomb, a more intimate discovery lay within a small, undecorated chamber accessible only through a hidden panel in the burial sanctum. Inside were 6 simple clay tablets placed around a stone bench. Each bore a short philosophical passage inscribed in fine script, seemingly authored by Solomon himself. These writings, humble and stripped of embellishment, reflected on mortality, the burden of leadership, the weight of knowledge, and the transience of power. In contrast to the monumental achievements surrounding them, these meditations offered a deeply personal window into the inner life of a man often remembered only for his external accomplishments. They portrayed a ruler who struggled with questions of legacy and identity, a seeker of truths that extended beyond the material world. There was an intentionality in the layout of the tomb that defied the norms of ancient burials. Rather than focusing solely on afterlife preparation, the design and content suggested it was built equally as a library, laboratory, and cathedral, a culmination of a lifetime's pursuits. Every chamber, every artifact felt like a syllable in a carefully crafted statement that wisdom was not merely acquired but must be safeguarded for future generations. The discovery stood as a stark reminder that Solomon's legacy was not about the gold that adorned his throne or the armies he commanded, but the timeless pursuit of understanding, of himself, his world, and the divine patterns he believed connected them both. With each new analysis and decrypted scroll, the tomb continues to reveal layers of complexity, presenting Solomon not as a mythic abstraction, but as a multidimensional figure whose vision extended well beyond his own era. His tomb is more than a monument. It is an idea set in stone, a message in the bottle of time that finally reached the shore of the present. The implications will take decades to fully process, but one truth is already certain. The world now stands not merely stunned, but transformed by the unlocking of Solomon's final mystery. In a secluded alcove near the rear of the tomb complex, researchers found an artifact unlike any other, an intricately carved orb made of obsidian and gold, resting within a cradle of petrified wood. Unlike ceremonial relics, this object bore no religious symbols or royal insignia. Instead, it was marked with a sequence of spiraling grooves and embedded with tiny lenses made from a translucent mineral. When light was passed through the orb, it projected a patterned array of symbols onto the surrounding walls. Symbols not yet linked to any known ancient writing system. Scholars theorized that it might be an early mnemonic device, a kind of visual codex, or even a prototype for information storage based on light refraction. Nearby, a metal disc embedded in the wall displayed concentric rings etched with astronomical alignments and seasonal calendars far more accurate than any previously recorded from that period. The calendar's reach extended thousands of years beyond Solomon's lifetime, suggesting a cosmological vision that embraced cycles of time unknown to contemporary civilizations. These final discoveries underscored the scale of Solomon's ambition, not just as a king of a people, but as a steward of timeless knowledge. His tomb, far from a resting place, was a vault of foresight, an enduring testament to a mind centuries ahead of its time. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us? What are your thoughts on King Solomon's tomb being opened? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.